Hi, I'm Greg Lukianoff, President of FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, and I'm here at Valdosta State University in southern Georgia. Over the years, FIRE has waged a successful campaign against so-called free speech zones on college campuses across the country. These free speech zones are attempts to limit free speech to tiny areas on campus far away from where free speech can be exercised, and a brazen violation of students' constitutional rights. Valdosta State University has the rare distinction of actually having one of the worst free speech zones we've ever seen. Welcome to Valdosta State University's free speech zone, the sole place on campus where students are allowed to engage in free speech activities. It represents less than 1% of the 168-acre campus and is only available from noon to 1 and 5 to 6, 2 hours a day. And even then, you have to get written permission to use it. In addition to all of those limitations, the university reserves the right in its sole discretion to ban speech from the free speech zone that in its own estimation constitutes a quote-unquote clear and present danger. Now, what does a clear and present danger mean at Valdosta State University? Well, as we'll see in the case of Hayden Barnes, the clear and present danger can be represented in the form of a collage. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't heard that the main weapon of terrorists are collages or dioramas or macaroni paintings. But as we'll see in the case of Hayden Barnes, that this clear and present danger can be extended to even the most clearly constitutionally protected speech.
When we were first informed of the situation at Valdosta State by Greg Lukianoff and Will Creeley of FIRE, we looked into the facts, we found out what had gone on. I have to tell you that in a case like this, when you hear these facts, you think no responsible public official could possibly have gone overboard in the way they appeared to do at Valdosta State.
I read about 2 parking garages that were being planned for the Valdosta State University campus. They were going to cost $30 million, which I calculated to be about $15,000 per parking space. I thought that was a really bad idea. I believe the parking garages will contribute to our nation's epidemic of asthma, obesity. This was a moral issue for me.
He decided to do what any other person would do who wanted to protest or to raise concerns and inform the public about an issue of concern. That is, he distributed flyers. He wrote a letter to the editor of the student newspaper, and he got in touch with policymakers. It's exactly what our First Amendment was designed to protect.
I phoned the Board of Regents, whose home phone numbers are listed on the Board of Regents website. I didn't call them at home, I called them at work because their place of business is listed as well. I spoke to a few of them, I presented my case. I called the President's office. I say, hi, my name is Hayden Barnes, I'd like to set up an appointment to speak with the President. Silence. About 30 seconds later, another woman comes on and says, Mr. Barnes, we need you in this office at 5 o'clock this afternoon.
As is often the case when individuals express views that policymakers or decision makers don't like, rather than taking those views into account and making a decision, the officials at Valdosta State, and in particular its president, Ronald Zachary, decided that it would be a better idea to try and silence that voice.
I knew he might have been upset with me, but I had done nothing wrong, so I was ready to be grilled, but I didn't think there were going to be any repercussions. He proceeded to lecture me on leadership, on how I was wrong, that students have overwhelmingly complained about the parking issue. This has been in the work for five years. Who am I to question this? He was very clear that he was personally offended and felt attacked by my advocacy of alternatives. He felt that any alternative to a parking garage, whether it be off-site parking, expanded bus system, or restricting freshman cars, would be detrimental to student enrollment and would leave a stain on his legacy as president of Valdosta State University. At this point, I was so shell-shocked from the intimidation, I didn't know what to think. So I just went back to my dorm. I didn't do anything. The infamous collage, the top of the cartoon read, "Save Zachary Memorial Parking Garage." It was a tongue-in-cheek joke about President Zachary's legacy and the student environmental organization's failure to address the parking garage issue. It was a small venting of frustration. On May 7th, I returned to my dorm room and found a note slipped under my door. Attached to the note was a collage that I had posted on my Facebook 2 weeks earlier. And the letter read, "You have been administratively withdrawn from Valdosta State University for the attached document and other threatening behavior towards the university president."
The claim was made by the university that it was that collage that led the university president to conclude that Hayden was a clear and present danger to the safety of the campus. Now, I think no rational person could look at that collage, either in isolation and certainly not in the context in which it was distributed online, and conclude that it was a danger to anybody, much less a clear and present danger. And yet that's how it was interpreted by the university president, and I think in this case simply as pretext to claim that this represented some kind of danger.
It characterized me as very unstable, that, you know, I could crack at any minute, that I was obsessing about President Zachariah and I was gonna go nuts and shoot up the school or set myself on fire or kill myself or murder-suicide. None of those things are like me.
First of all, you should know that Hayden is not just a student, he's also a decorated paramedic.
I'm a nationally certified, state-licensed paramedic. My job is to save lives, not harm them.
There is nothing from his background, from the materials that were distributed that all simply focused on the environmental issue, or anything else that occurred that would make a rational person conclude that there was any kind of danger. And even if there had been something that would justify raising the question, the proper way to do that is through the channels and the processes that the university itself has set up, and that is to follow due process, to have a hearing, to let Hayden present his evidence if there are questions about this. Actually, a simple phone call asking him what he meant by his collage would have solved this whole thing, but instead the university took preemptive action to withdraw him from school.
I took all the evidence that I had and overnighted it to fire, and they began researching my case. When it came clear that I needed legal counsel, they obtained it very quickly.
There were substantive constitutional rights that were violated in this case. Because this action was taken in direct response and in reaction to Hayden's expression of his views on an issue of public importance, this kind of retaliation is a core violation of the rights guaranteed by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution to allow people to speak out on issues that concern them.
The counsel that I've obtained through FIRE's legal network has been very critical to my case, without which I probably would have dropped my issue a long time ago. I would have dropped the case a long time ago because I just didn't have the resources to fight it. With their help, we've filed suit, and I believe we will see some resolution of this in my favor.
So here we are, the construction of the parking garage that started the entire controversy. For merely peacefully protesting this construction, as is his constitutional right, Hayden Barnes was expelled from a university, his privacy invaded, and his life thrown into turmoil. Now, there is somewhat of a happy ending here. Just hours after we interviewed Hayden Barnes, the Board of Regents of Valdosta State University, after months of advocacy from FIRE and a federal lawsuit by a FIRE legal network attorney, decided to reverse its findings against Hayden Barnes. He's now welcome to return to the university if he chooses to. But the damage is already done. Cases like these and gross abuses like these send a chilling message to students that they open their mouth and they express their opinions at their peril. This isn't right. This isn't what universities are supposed to be. Really, universities are supposed to be the free speech zone of our entire society. For FIRE, this is Greg Lukianoff.